what a month, you know? This is a lot has happened. Taylor Swift's album dropped. And OJ died. White women are having a month. This is... Wow, this month is for you specific. The two best things that could happen happened for you. Wow. You'd think this month was really named after a white woman named April. Like, incredible. Nah, Taylor Swift is breaking so many records. Like, I'm sure she's breaking them now as I'm speaking. She released her album, it hits 300 million streams in the first 12 hours. It's like, never happened before, ever. And people are freaking out about reading into the lyrics of every song. There's like scavenger hunts, there's everything. And this is the thing for me with Taylor. A lot of people trash Taylor, and I don't know, I don't get it. If somebody likes something, let them have it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it brings people joy. It's not hurting anybody, except maybe Taylor's exes. Like, it's hurting nobody. Like, people are having a good time and stuff. If anything, I hope it makes the world a bit more compassionate, you know? There are a lot of people that like Taylor, and the people that don't get it. But I hope that the people that like Taylor will be able to give some grace, because I think that Taylor Swift, she does for her fans what wrestling does for dudes. Do you know what I mean? Like, because if you're not a wrestling fan, you're like, what are they even doing? Why are they moving all stupid? It's just... But if you get it, you're in it. And you're like, you just don't get it. You weren't there, you know? But they're very similar, you know? If you don't like it, you don't get it. And you're like, who likes this? And it turns out the answer to both is millions of people. You know? Same way that there are a lot of little girls and young women out there that want to be Taylor Swift, or older women that see themselves in Taylor Swift. I think every man in here has looked at a wrestler and... Every man in here has watched some wrestler at some point and then walked away like, I wish somebody would f with me. Like, I wish... I would just... There are people that listen to Taylor Swift songs and feel it, like truly feel, like in their bones you can tell they feel the song. It speaks to them in a deep way, and they've never been in a relationship at all. Like Taylor's describing her breakup in an exquisite fashion, but then a person who's never been through anything is like, oh my God, yes, yes. It's just like that time this other totally unrelated thing happened to me, yes. Same thing with wrestling, you know? Wrestling storylines will tear you up. You know? Like when a wrestler turns heel and he turns on all his friends. Guys watch that and we're like, just like Greg. Triple H, he really evil. Oh. I didn't grow up with money. I think it's funny when people make a lot of money and they're known as new money, you know? And people how they feel how they feel about it. You know, like a lot of athletes are new money, a lot of entertainers are new money and everything. But nobody ever talks about new poor. We never talk about new poor, and we don't feel bad for new poor. A new money backstory is always inspiring. It's always like, I came from nothing, and I studied hard, and I played football to the best of my ability, and then I got a scholarship. To a good school, a scout school. And then I played every day like the scout was there every day. I put my body on the line, and I still studied as hard as possible in case football didn't work out. But you know what? I had a great game in front of a scout. They brought me out. Next thing I know, I'm getting drafted. And now I'm one of the top earners in the NFL. We love a story like that because it felt like all you really needed was to do your best, and you could make something out of that. So we love new money. but nobody ever talks about Newport. Not only do we not talk about Newport, we don't really feel bad for Newport. Yeah, but you ever hear a Newport story where it's like, oh, we've actually, as a family, we were kind of a dynasty. We were rich for 250 years because we owned a lot of farms. Yeah, we owned a lot of farms, and we were big in tobacco, and so as the farming industry lended itself to a more industrial tobacco industry, we profited, and it was my great-great-grandfather that actually sold his shares in the tobacco company, and he had other ventures that he wanted to go into, and he had some sons, but only one of the sons really had kids, and so all the wealth just kept getting consolidated. Less and less people had kids, so then it was all down to Trent. And Trent took some big swings with crypto, and it didn't go as planned. And so that's why Trent is working at this Piggly Wiggly. And why he's not a very good sweeper. He doesn't really understand the broom needs to touch the ground. He just... It is genuinely hilarious watching someone rich try to do a job. It's a little disheartening, but you're also like, look at him go. Oh, I remember my first experience with Newport was a kid in my neighborhood. I didn't always live at the best neighborhoods. I'll put it like that. And there was a kid when I was little that moved in, and you could tell he was Newport. We were playing. I think we were just playing in like this lot, and he walked up to us, and he had just moved in with his parents, and you could tell he was Newport because his name. You could tell he was Newport because his name was Thurston. And I remember when he said it, and there's a thing with kids where, for whatever reason, and it just is what it is. Sometimes kids take a certain shine to each other, or they don't like each other, or whatever. But we liked him as soon as we met him. We just really did, and he was so earnest. He's a sweet kid, and so we were just like, you can play with us. We don't care. And we didn't even really have a concept of money in that way to look at him sideways, right? We were all just kids. But when he said that his name was Thurston, I was kind of like, ooh. That's the most punchable name I've ever heard in my life. So, look, I tell you what, we gonna call you 30. And if anybody asks why, just say you did something real bad 30 times. And so we used to love hanging out with 30. And 30 was Newport because his family had been rich for a long time. They probably owned a few farms. But 30's dad lost it all in the .com bubble. I don't know. Yeah, I guess if you don't know anything about it, back in the day when the internet was very new, a lot of companies were like adding these online sides to their brick and mortar stores, which was obviously super profitable for some businesses, and for some businesses it didn't matter at all because it was about the infrastructure of being able to send everything. But we didn't know that initially, so there were some companies whose stock price went up just because they had a website. And then it all came crashing down when people started looking for returns on these incredible stock prices. But most of these companies just had like a website with a broken link. And so, you know, you couldn't pull your money out fast enough, and 30's dad didn't pull his money out at all. So they moved in next to us. And we take walks and stuff. We like walk around neighborhood once in a while and everything. And there was a dog. There was a dog that was in the yard of one of our neighbors way down the street. And this dog was a big dog, and he had like a big thick collar, and he had a chain that he would wear, and the chain had some length to it, and the chain was around the tree. And you know, 30, he hated it. He hated every time he saw it. It made him sick that there was a dog that was outside chained up against a tree. It didn't matter how much room he had to run around and stuff. He just didn't like the concept. And he'd bring it up. Every time we passed by, he's like, they got that dog chained to the tree like some kind of animal. And I was like, yeah, 30. Crazy stuff. And look, I'm not even saying that is right. I'm just saying it was a very big dog. Like it was like every time 30 would like protest that he want to go over there, he's like, I just want to like let him free. You should be able to run around. I was like, all right, but okay, listen. At that house, they live with that dog. So they probably know something we don't. Maybe they tried the whole freedom thing out. Maybe they used to have 2 dogs. That's a big ass dog. Maybe I'm not saying you have to love it. I'm not saying it's not wrong. I'm just saying that they may have tried other things. Maybe they tried making them inside dog. Maybe they used to have more family members. So you see what I'm saying? And there was one day where we were walking down the street together, and he peeled off from us, and he did it without saying anything, because I knew that he knew if he said something, we would try to stop him. But he just started walking over towards that house, and I told him, I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure that's a dog from the Sandlot. So you really don't need to be playing games. Don't go over there, right? And then even as we saw him kill, we were like, 30, where you going? 30, where you doing? 30. Started saying it slow like it was his real name. 30! Get back over here. And this kid climbed the fence, jumped over, and the dog is like laying down, but he's not asleep, but he's just sort of laying in the grass. And 30 jumped over the fence, ran over to the chain, and the chain had no lock. It was just wrapped. And so 30 pulled it a little bit, released the slack from the end of that chain, and the whole chain just drops to the ground. And now the dog has not been moving. The dog's just sort of laying there. But the dog heard the chain drop, and he felt the slack release on his collar. And the dog turned around and looked at 30, and even the dog was like, are you sure? You must be new poor. And so the dog turns around, and he just, I don't know, just, you know, like when an animal is made of muscle? When they just have like phenomenal National Geographic level power? This dog whipped around and just started charging at 30, right? Now 30, in his very sweet mind, he thinks that this dog is bounding towards him for a hug. And so he actually starts to bend down and open his arms. He's just getting a wide stance. Now the dog, because the chain did have a ton of length to it. I want to be clear, this dog wasn't wrapped up against a tree like some Tom and Jerry cartoon. This dog actually was bounding for a while. And he was bounding so fast that, like, it was either all 4 feet touching the ground or nothing. Like, the dog was like this or he was like this. I've never seen a dog float like that. Like, the dog is coming at him like a bullet. And from where we were standing, by the way, all of us had been yelling run. We've been yelling run since we saw that the chain had no lock on it. And so then you see 30, just arms open, but even he started to be like, I've never seen this sort of reaction from a young pup before. And the dog is bounding towards him. And as it starts to really get close, 30 immediately just turns around and starts to run. But his wires are so crossed, he's still in the crab stance. So he's like, ah! And he grabs the fence and he climbs up the fence. He climbs up the fence so fast that he doesn't even try to get over the other side. He just slams to the ground on the other side. And he gets up and he dusts himself off. And he walks up to us. And I'm like, I told you that was the dog from the Sandlot. Why would you go over there? It's your new poor ass.
Make some noise for your friend and mine, Josh Johnson.
I don't know if y'all heard, by the way, but the Olympic Committee has decided to lift the intimacy ban in the Olympic Village, right? Yeah. Now, in case you didn't know, whenever people go to participate in the Olympics, right, especially for the Summer Olympics, they all stay in one big Olympic village together. And while they're there, they smash, all right? These are the best athletes in the world. In the peak of their physical prime, they're going to get it on, right? But Olympics is every 4 years, so 2024 Olympics means that last Olympics was that time we do not speak of, right? And in that time, they tried to have some semblance of the Olympics, and so they told the athletes, they were like, listen, something going around. The last thing we need is y'all making something new. So just come here, compete, go home, all right? But then you fast forward to present, 2024 Summer Olympics are in Paris, City of Love. Not only have they lifted the intimacy ban, they've committed to having 300,000 condoms in the Olympic Village. That's ambitious. 300,000 condoms. There's only 10,000 athletes. 300,000 condoms. Half the athletes are men. They expect 5,000 men to go through 300,000 condoms in the span of like 2 weeks. I am not an Olympic athlete. But on the night of my life, I went through 2. There is no way. That is too many condoms. That is too much pressure to put on these young men. It really is. They are already flying from around the world to win glory for their country. And now they gotta worry about putting a dent in their pile. That's not fair. It's too many condoms because you acting like all the athletes are gonna smash equally. They won't. Because you can be honest, when you think about the Summer Olympics, you think about the track stars, the swimmers, the gymnasts, the sexy athletes. Nobody's thinking about the equestrians. No one's like, he just ride that horse so good. I wonder what else he could. No one has said that ever. In fact, when you watch the sport, you're like, it seemed like the horse doing all the work. Oh. Like, it wouldn't be a problem if it was like maybe the Winter Olympics, you know? Winter Olympics could get through 300,000 easy, right? First of all, they need the warmth, right? Second, if there's any athlete from any sport that could get through 300,000 condoms in a couple weeks, it's the curlers. People love to act like the curlers don't get any. That entire sport is foreplay, top to bottom, all right? Every time they're playing, every time they send that rock down the ice, what do they do? Every single time, just, nice and gentle to get it started, you know what I mean? And then they send it down to that other guy on the other side of the ice with the broom, and he just... doing it just right so it hits a specific spot. Am I the only one watching the sport? Because that's my big issue. I just feel like, how do I put this? Okay, I feel like when it comes to the summer sports versus the winter sports look really, really cool. And all the sports are hard to do. All the people that participate are athletes, right? I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just saying that the people who aren't athletes that do those things still look cooler when it's winter. Does that make sense? Like if you are snowboarding and then you accidentally hit some like slope and you do something cool in the air, people still gonna wanna bang you when you land. But if you playing table tennis, there's just a lot of the summer sports that are very virgin adjacent, is what I'm... Do you know what I mean? Like the winter sports are like an event. Like even now, even in life, if you went on a trip and you were like, I'm going skiing, it's like, oh, you're going skiing. This is about to be dope, right? I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I do think that people who do like the shot put and stuff, those are very impressive athletes. But if you walked up to somebody in life and said, I throw, it doesn't hit the same. You know what I mean? Like, there's just activities that are very impressive when the athletes do them, but if you're not an athlete, it's not impressive. Even the javelin. You look at the javelin, when an Olympic athlete does it, when they walk up and they do that, and then they like, blah, blah, and then it just goes forever. Wow. When you see like a regular guy do it, I was in high school and I saw, okay, it was a kid. He was supposed to be the best one at this other school because I wasn't on the track team, but I was like adjacent to the team. Like if somebody got hurt, they would let me run. But they knew I wouldn't win, so it was just to appease me because I kept coming to all the meets and I kept dressing out like I was one of them. But they were like, "You slow, you can't be with us." But I was like, yeah, but sometimes y'all trip, and one of these days, it's gonna be my time to shine. And they were like, yeah, but the other kids will still be fast. And I was like, we'll worry about that bridge when we cross it, right? But anyway, there was a meet where this kid had a javelin, and this was a bad track meet to begin with because they had everybody doing everything at the same time, right? And so then they had some of the kids running to qualify at the same time as kids were throwing the shot put and stuff. Now, people weren't really that strong, so things weren't going that far, but there was this one kid that was very good, and then he threw the javelin, and then he threw the javelin, and then you just heard and there's no way to catch a javelin in your body that doesn't make it look like you shouldn't be dead. Like, because it hit this kid in the leg, like it hit just in the leg, right? Which is incredibly painful, but it's so much stick hanging out the leg, it's like, how did it not go through your leg? I don't think you dying right now. You should have, like if this was war, if this is the movie, you'd be, you know what I mean? You just over here, you know what I mean? I feel like what I'm saying is starting to make sense. I feel like you're getting it. It's that it's that the summer sports just have so much range. You know what I mean? Like in winter sports, there's like bobsled or something. Bobsled still very cool, going super fast. And then you get to the end. Even if you last place, you went so fast. There's somebody at the finish line that's like, "What are you doing later?" Like, you know. But if you're the discus at the Summer Olympics, and it just, you throw your hardest, right? You throw it as far as you can, and then it just go, and then it doesn't hit that line, right? Because they already have the line of what would be impressive. This impressive line right here, if you get it past that, people go, ooh. If you get low, people are like, oh. And then you threw it as hard as you could, and then, oh. You going home alone. That's just the way it's gonna work. But I hope it works out for the summer athletes. I really do. I hope they get it on. Because selfishly, I want to see what some Olympic-made babies look like. You know what I mean? Like a medalist in judo and a medalist in the high jump. That sound like how you make a superhero. You know what I mean? Oh, I hope they smash to their heart's delight. I really do. I want to see any like mixing. Like gold can't get with bronze. All right? Like we might not be making a winner. All right? I think family is incredibly important, right? But it does suck. Like, here's the thing. I don't know how to describe this. And this is not a perfect, I haven't thought it all the way through. So I haven't actually thought of a solution. I really am just up here complaining, okay? But it does feel upsetting sometimes that when you marry, like I've watched a lot of my friends get married, right? And when you marry, you're in the family, but you just wanted them. Do you know what I mean? Like you love them, and then a bunch of people you don't know are like, no, us too. We all go together now. Inseparable. We're family. You know? And sometimes it works out beautifully. Like sometimes you meet someone, you fall in love, and their family is also delightful. And that's very sweet. I love that. I love that for my friends. I love that for my family members as that's happened to. But then sometimes you meet someone and y'all fall in love, and then you get introduced to people that you're like, ooh, I don't want to have anything to do with... I don't want to have anything to do with what you got going on. Like, that's not why I came. You know what I mean? It feels like going to a restaurant, right? And being like, oh, I'll get the wings. And they're like, and you'll have the burger. And you're like, I can really only fit wings, right? And that's why I only ordered the wing. No, trust me, the burger comes with the wings. And if you don't have a sufficient amount of burger, the wings will get mad, all right? The wings will be like, why don't you care about my burger, right? And you'll be like, I just wanted you. I didn't sign up for burger. I just wanted, I don't even like beef like that. Like, I just wanted some chicken wings. And you're great. It's like, yeah, but the beef, and we were raised together. Like, we should... all find a way to get along. And you're like, this metaphor has run out. No, I just look, I've watched it happen, and it seems like a real bummer. It seems like, because you know that your friends will tell you about it. They'll tell you about what's going on, and it'll be some in-law and something, and they're not getting along, and I'm like, man, that's because you can't even really yell at them good because they're not actually your family. Do you know what I mean? Like, at a certain amount of yell, like if it's your brother, your sister, you can let somebody have it. Y'all grew up together, and even if you were in separate households or whatever, you can still that's your bloodline. You can be like, you're an idiot, right? when you put in law on the back end, it just takes all the juice out of... Like, some people still have a very good relationship, and I love that for them. But some people are like, my brother-in-law is a real... He's... You just want to choke. He's... It's not even just... It's... Sometimes I dream about just punch the back of his head until I just pull back. The knuckles are just mush. I hate him so much, I don't even have words. And then you have to be like, but that's your brother, but not, right? Oh, one of the most interesting cases of it I'd seen was, okay, so this kid from my hometown got married young, right? So they got married like almost right out of high school. So they're like 19 and stuff. And they want to be married to each other, but they're weirdly self-aware that they don't really have the resources to start a life, right? So they just married at home, right? They didn't have to do this at all, right? But they spend a lot of time at her grandma's house. Now, they're married, right? But then the grandma got remarried because the granddad had been gone for a while, and the grandma could still get it, right? So she was out getting it, right? And so, you know, she was out playing the field and everything, and then she found somebody to settle down with. Yeah, I mean, like settle concrete with, right? Because this is the last one, right? And it's like, and so she found somebody, and then, you know, that guy is now hanging out around the grandma. Now, his wife loves her grandma, loves hanging out with her and everything, so they're over at the house a lot. But he has a very weird situation because he has an in-law now, right? The grandma is his in-law, but she just got married again. So now this guy is like a step granddaddy. And if you think things can be fraught with a stepfather, a step granddaddy cares so little about you. Because he's like, I almost didn't meet you. Like, I don't, like, everybody grown. Like, we don't have to be talking right now. And so he had a step granddaddy kind of in-law, right? I've lost how this works. But all I know is he didn't have a in-law granddaddy, but then that stepped in, so now he's the step granddaddy, and that guy's name is Earl, and Earl is a dick, right? Earl using all the time he have left to just be an asshole. Which normally I would be on board with, but it was happening to my friend, so it was just kind of funny. Like Earl would be watching TV, and then they come over, and he still want to watch his show. And then he would say, because the grandma was never watching TV, she was always cooking or doing something, right? So it would just be him and Earl sometimes in the room while she was chilling with her grandma. And he'd be like, hey, can we watch like anything else? Because Earl would love to watch like Star Trek, stuff like that. And he's like, can we just watch the news, anything that's happening, right? Besides this. And Earl would be like, yeah, sure. And then he would get up and like go to the bathroom or something. But what he had done when he was getting up was he snuck the batteries out the remote and put them back and gave them to my friends. Now he just pressed it thinking that the TV not working. You could have said no. Yeah. There's at a certain point you're like, man, why are you here? Why am I here? Why are we doing this? And Earl had he had this raspy voice. I say he's still alive. He had this super raspy voice where he'd be like, so y'all just gonna stay for dinner? Eating up all the food. Earl didn't even cook. Her grandma cooked. But he would still get he would watch my buddy eat and watch him eat. He got the same food on his plate, by the way. This is how you know Earl a true hater from the core. Because he eating the same... It's not like my friend has something delicious he can't have. He just hates that this dude also has cornbread. So he's like... staring him down. Nastiest thing Earl ever did was Earl was like in a chair for a little while, right? And he had like twisted his ankle, and so he was in like a little wheelchair, right? And he wasn't leaving the house much. But one time it was him and my buddy in the room. And without saying a word, they just watching Star Trek. He given up on trying to switch shows and stuff like that. He's like, well, I'm with Earl, I'm just gonna watch Star Trek, and that's it, right? Earl leans until he tips out of his wheelchair and he laying on the ground. And when everybody come in, he pointed to my buddy, was like, why would you push me like that?
Give it up for Josh Johnson.
This weekend, wow, it is for everybody. I imagine this weekend was weird. It was weird because for like half a day, we did think half a day. That's so long. Half of a day. It's a very long time to think the president. And then, you know, we found out, oh, it wasn't the case. And they posted, you know. The news reports came out. They were like, the president's been found golfing in Virginia. It's like, don't say found like that. Found. Like a lost senior. Found. It's insane. Just say he was golfing in Virginia. Found in Virginia? It makes it sound like the White House didn't know. I'm pretty sure they drove him. Found. 12 hours is too long to think somebody's dead. My buddy lives with his grandpa. And every time he thinks his grandpa's dead, he finds out in about 5 minutes. His granddad does that sleep you only do when you old. You know that sleep where you like... Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know why, but like it seems like after 70, people just sleep with a little bit too much neck. You know what I mean? Like his granddad can't just go to sleep. He always hit the like that's a very dead way to lay. That's how Talia died at the end of Dark Knight Rises. She's like the neck crank is a surefire way for somebody to put a spoon in front of your nose to see if you're still kicking. He does it a lot, apparently, you know? Because his granddaddy sleeps pretty deep. And there's that whole thing about sleep being the cousin of death, and I think it's his granddaddy's half brother, because not even a snore, not even a you know what I mean? He said he always thinks his grandpa gone when he take a nap, because the way he falls asleep, which, to be fair to my friend, this is I've never seen this in anyone else in my entire life. But he said his granddad will go take a nap. He'll announce it too, like, I lay down. And then he goes to lay down, whether it's on the couch or it's in his room, and lays his head back. And he said the way his granddaddy falls asleep is he takes a deep breath. That's a great way to look dead. This man goes to take a nap, lays on the couch and goes, Now, to be fair to his granddaddy, every time he wakes up, he does finish the breath. Said his granddad never wake up peaceful. He always wake up. But even then, he's never wondered if his granddaddy was gone for 12 hours. 12 hours. Jeez. And we thought that because Trump doesn't look good. You know what I mean? He just finally looked like he act like. You know what I mean? Like if somebody listed everything a person did next to everything that they ingested, you'd be like, that's not a person who's well. And finally, he doesn't, he just doesn't look like he's doing great. I didn't even know the term. He had some venous thing. Turns out that venous thing was his ankles. His ankles, I don't know if you've seen them. World leaders have seen them. World leaders have had to sit there and not look. In case you're not familiar, look, Trump's ankles are... No, his ankles just sitting there looking, caked up. Like... I mean, he got some thickums under those socks. Trump's ankles have quite a bit of booty. I can't imagine what that must be like to be an aide in the White House and walking next to the president, taking orders from the president of the United States, but all you can hear is his ankles clapping. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, it is. It's like his ankles and then his hand. That hand. His hand is black. Like, it's just... Imagine being Donald Trump and turning black. No one's more upset than him. No, that's bad. That is tough. You know, he's over here trying to live, and if you just don't have something on the schedule, people assume. It's funny too because I go back and forth with friends. I have friends that are sort of across the political spectrum. You know, I have these friends who, whether they tell me or not, I know that they voted for Trump. At least one of them, I'm pretty sure, voted for him 3 times. You know? Every time he could, he did. And so we'll go back and forth all the time. You know, we'll mostly be arguing all the time. And we argue about a bunch of things that aren't Trump as well. Like sometimes we'll just argue about like whole social issues, whole different policies and everything. And maybe it's because I've known him longer than Trump has been president that I feel like having those arguments is, to me, worth it. You know, I don't ask anybody else to do everything that I'm doing, but I think that there is something to get to the bottom of, and it's what we are gonna do when he's gone. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that right now it's easy to put everything that's happening and how we feel about each other on one person, because it's sort of the catalyst for all this stuff. But the groundwork was being laid long before he ever became president. And so whenever he's gone, you know, we're all gonna have to figure out a way to relate to each other. Because it's not as if all of the problems begin and end with him. You know, he's just one of them. But I don't know. No idea. It's maybe. We don't know. It could be any day now. It could be 200 more years. Truly, like my grandma was in the nursing home before she passed, and I would go visit her and everything. My grandfather as well, at different times, they were in nursing homes, and when I go to visit them, you'd see people who had to be 3,000 years old. And it's like, I don't know, you know, you try to live a life that's full of love, and like you try to make memories and moments with family, with strangers. You want to have a full life. You want to have a life that you look back on and you're proud of the impact you had on people, you know? And along the way, try to maybe, I don't know, eat right when you can, but enjoy yourselves, you know? And drink sometimes, not too often. Maybe party a little bit when you're younger and wean off of it as you get older, but do your best to have a really impactful life, even if you never become whatever it is, like rich, famous, popular. You're someone who, by being in other people's lives, their lives are richer. And same way that trees in the forest have roots that overlap, your life impacts other people's lives. You create ripple effects and create positive change in the world. And hopefully by doing all the right things, you have a good, long life. Or you could be the devil and probably live way longer, like way longer. So many of those people in that nursing home were very mean. They were so mean. I was like, man, life must run off hate fuel. How are you this old and mad you're alive too? Be sitting there, none keeps you alive longer than sitting in a rocking chair and not rocking. Imagine, you gotta really be a bad person to sit in a rocking chair, have the joy of rocking and not even want it. My friend said, you know, he went through a similar thing. He would go to the nursing home, visit his grandparents and stuff, and he said every day there was this old dude in a rocking chair, not rocking, sitting there, arms crossed in the chair. Everybody walked by. People would say hello to him. Finally, he was like, you know what? I say hello to this man when I pass him, and we never really have a conversation. He doesn't speak to me. And I don't take it personally because you never know what people are going through. You know, some people, you might think they're being rude, but maybe they have something going on. Maybe they have dementia a little bit, or maybe they're in their own head about something, trying to remember something and doing something. So he said, I'm gonna make a point the next time I go there to have a conversation with him. You know what I mean? Because that's the one thing he said he never saw anybody do. And so next time he went to visit his grandpa, on the way out, he walked up to him and he was like, hi, how you doing? The man said, I'm alive. And he's like, well, I hope you're having a good day. He's like, why would it be a good day? And, well, you know, it's nice outside and everything, sun shining. You're in a rocking chair. And he was like, I'm in a rocking chair. I don't like this rocking chair. I just sit in it so nobody else cares. It's easy to put everything in the way that we are now and all narratives and all discourse on just one person. It's easy to do that, especially when that person looks like they're driving all of it, right? But the ground was laid for this person long before they came into any sort of political picture. You know what I mean? Like for a long time, people have felt like there was nobody who was looking out for them. For a long time, people felt like it would take somebody who could not be bought by Washington or Wall Street's special interest money, or couldn't be twisted in whichever direction by lobbyists, or was looking out for people because they weren't motivated by money, and they weren't motivated by the promise of getting rich, and the thing that we came to believe as a country almost. You saw this way before Trump ever entered the political picture, is that if someone was at least independently wealthy, maybe they wouldn't be swayed by the money. You know what I mean? And there were those people across political spectrum that felt like there was no one looking out for them, that slowly everything that was their quality of life and everything that they earned was eroding away piece by piece, right? And that they just needed someone to step up who would stand in the way of all that and wouldn't be swayed by it. And unfortunately, that person never showed up. But and so I have these arguments with my friend, and there was one point where I'm going back and forth for a while because I felt like for everything that he said, I was saying something that was a reason why he shouldn't trust Trump on it, or why I didn't think it was something that was going to happen, you know? And finally he goes, well, you know, he's a businessman. And I had heard this before, and he said he's a businessman. And I was like, oh, he's a businessman. He's a businessman. He is a businessman. He's a businessman, though. No, like he is a businessman. He's a businessman. He's a businessman. He is a businessman. You said he's a businessman, and he's a businessman. You told me he's a businessman. I've heard this before. He's a businessman. I'm just making sure that I understand what you're saying. He's a businessman. He is a businessman. He's a businessman. So even you didn't say good businessman. You said, You said, as in he's one, as in, yes, he does business. It's a businessman. Yeah. He's a businessman. He is a businessman that bankrupted a casino. You know casinos. You know those things you don't generally leave money with. He bankrupted a casino. He's a businessman. He bankrupted a casino. A casino, though. He's a businessman. It's a businessman. Bankrupted a casino. And look, I'm not a businessman. And I don't own a casino. In fact, whenever I go to a casino, I don't even gamble. I just do the show. I've done some shows at casinos. And then, I do the show, and then I go back to my room. I leave. Like, I don't know the ins and outs of running a casino. I hardly know what it's like to really, enjoy yourself at a casino, walking through and playing games and stuff. I've walked with other people as they've wanted to gamble and stuff like that. I've been awkwardly standing there, but I don't know what it takes to run a casino. And maybe this casino, maybe I'm throwing this out there as an olive branch. One of many I'll extend. Maybe this casino, this one, maybe had those slot machines that really give you credit for how hard you pull them. You know what I mean? You pull that slot machine as hard as you can, and the slot machine is like, okay, Daddy. Nah, I gotta get you a little something for that. No, I don't know, but he knows because he's a businessman. He's a businessman. Maybe I'm throwing it out there that at this casino they had, working for the casino, blackjack dealers that were as bad at blackjack as me. Maybe. The dealer, you'd be at his table, and he was like, you said hit? You sure? Okay. And you win again. All right, wonderful. I don't know. He probably knows because he's a businessman. Maybe this was one of the only casinos in all of America, maybe in all of the world, the only casino with clocks. Who knows? Maybe just over the poker table was a clock, and people were like, 9 already? I should go home. I've been here for quite a while. I don't know, but I'm sure he knows because he's a businessman. He's a businessman. Bankrupted a casino. A businessman. And look, it's a casino. I can't think of a better... People come and drop off their money and leave. I can't think... I am not a businessman, but I can't think of a better business to make money. You can't even have casinos everywhere. But, you know, this is my thing. A part of me does understand how someone could think all we need to do is get a businessman in there to fix everything, because I think that America runs so much like a business, even in the parts that it shouldn't, that obviously we're going to think everything translates to business. You know, like I didn't, this was where I was naive, I'll tell you right now. I thought that even if there was no national pride or community, or even if we couldn't find some sort of like camaraderie as Americans, we at least at our very core loved money enough. I thought we loved money more than anyone loved him. I thought as soon as somebody messed with the money, we would all come to our senses and be like, yo, not the money. That's the only thing holding this together. But then you see there are people whose lives have already been ruined. Because of his policies, you could lay all the blame at his feet, and they're like, I'll figure something else out. You'll figure something else out. That's crazy. That's a crazy thing to say. Especially when, like, what? 12 months ago, you were screaming about eggs. And now your business is in shambles. And you're like, who can say? That felt insane. But also, I think that if you look at America as a business, it would make sense that you would want a businessman in there. But the thing is, you can't run the country the way you run a business. You know, a company, if they are in dire straits, could lay off half their work staff and then try to keep things going, use that to stay afloat. A company can buy back its own stocks in an effort to enrich itself as a company, make those stocks worth more. A company has a fiduciary responsibility to its shareholders. A company technically does more for its shareholders than the government does for its people. And so I could see how people would be like, oh, we'd at least like to get that. That'd be nice, some dividends or equity, something. We'd at least like to feel solvent. You know? But it just doesn't work that way. And I don't think it should. I think that a business now is very different than a business before. Like there's a thing that happened, and maybe it's only like my frame of reference because of age and everything, but I think that something happened in 2008 that we haven't recovered from still, which is that, like, for the first time ever, companies that truly screwed up beyond measure, like actually beyond measure, like they should have crashed everything. This is the type of stuff that you read in the textbook and then they, hung everybody. Like that's... We don't realize it, but that's the level of like nasty that it got in 2008. If you had, knocked off a couple hundred years and put it in France, there would have been a guillotine. You know what I mean? And instead, there was a bailout, but instead of a bailout of the people, it was a bailout of the companies, because we believe in business so much. We believe that everything works like a business, to the point where even the politicians, naively, maybe some of them sincerely, were sure that if we keep the business afloat, it'll keep the people afloat, because then people won't lose their jobs, and then people will still be able to get these services, and people will still buy these products, right? And what ended up happening is that, so many people were foreclosed on, so many people lost their jobs anyway, people's like 401ks and retirements were destroyed, and then the people that they gave the bailout to sort of, trickle down the economics, something got stopped up right at the top. And so people who had wrecked the economy beyond measure got a bonus. They got a bonus for wrecking usually when you break something. And ever since then, it feels like business is about not being left holding the bag. That's what real business seems to be now, is that you do everything you can to extract as much value as possible, and then you dip before everything comes crashing down, whether you dip because you sell the company or you dip because, you decide to shutter it after you've fired everyone and ruined it as a service and everything. Basically private equity, right? So I believe he's a businessman. I do, because I'm sure, look, if we're talking business, to his credit, I'm sure that he was not worse off for bankrupting that casino. I'm sure it was the people that worked at the casino. I'm sure he stiffed some of the contractors who helped build the casino, but I'm sure that he found a way to leverage that debt, because he loves debt. He found a way to leverage that debt into his next venture, and then he started selling steaks or whatever. I don't know, it was just, it's been a lot of products. You know what else it is too, is that you can't focus too much on this one person. It makes him more important than he really is. I understand that he's president, I understand he's one of the richest people in the world, but as far as importance, it's about what lasts, This dude, no wonder we thought he was gone. He went on Fox News. No wonder we thought he was gone. Trump went on Fox News. Everybody forget this. Trump went on Fox News and just started randomly, no one asked him, randomly talking about how he was trying to get into heaven. And it's like, then you know. One thing my buddy's granddaddy never does is talk about the afterlife. Gets up, watches his shows, takes his naps, gets up and eats, and repeats. If he was pontificating on heaven, I think people would just start assuming that every nap really was the last nap. No. It's because, a man's hand. Guys, he's turning black. But I don't, look, I truly, I talk about Trump because he's in the news, but I don't really care about Trump. I care about people. What's going on with people? All of this is going to outlast this one person, And even in California, you see in California, where there was one case, it seems contained and already treated and everything, but it is happening. One case of plague. You know plague. You know plague. Plague. Some would ask which plague. Apparently, the. You know plague from the producers of the Middle Ages. Plague. You know plague. Don't act like you don't know plague. You know plague. It's plague. The reason Europe's not bigger. Plague. You know plague. And no matter how much you may hate Trump, you gotta admit, this is some pretty bad luck. He 2 for 2 on presidential terms and plagues. That's crazy. That was wild. Yeah, first one a fluke. The second one, how did a plague skip Biden's era? Like, that's... Plague. Because that's the fear, is that, like, yes, they found one case, they treated it, you know, they've even traced it back to a particular source, because it's really a climate change issue, because basically the fleas that carry plague are thriving right now in the warmer climate, and so then they're hopping on more rats, and then the rats might come in contact with people, right? And so there's always the fear, the possibility that it isn't just that one case, and it isn't just contained to California. There's a real fear and a possibility that plague could have spread to the president's hand. It's possible. Because what we did, and how do I put this? What we've done in the U.S. as far as presidents is it's not exactly like we're picking young ones. You know what I mean? Whatever you do, whatever that thing is, whether it's law, is military, or it's business, we seem to want you to have a wealth of experience in that field. Because there's going to be 3 branches of the government, and you may not be familiar with all of them. Even if you're a career politician, you may not know how to like wade perfectly through all of them. But, you know, if you have a lot of experience in one thing, that could win you the trust of the people. And we haven't had a young president in a long time. I mean, like, Kennedy was one, like, young ones, like a young guy being president. And we haven't really done that again. Like, you know, what we've done is we've let confidence and swag make up for youth. If you are the president and you present yourself in a way that makes us feel good, we will turn that back over to you in the sort of social capital that youth usually carries, right? Because we want you to have experience, but at a certain point, we have to be realistic, right? Like, Bill Clinton wasn't young, but he had a saxophone. We had a saxophone, so we defended him. We were like, that shows lung capacity. Have you heard him play, though? And then you had George W. Bush. Look, George Bush wasn't young, but he... I don't know, he just had like a childlike wonder to his... You could always tell when he was addressing the nation and he had also just learned a new word. Bush would be up there like, terror. Did I do it good? And then you had Barack Obama. And Barack Obama was younger than some of the people who have been president, you know, before and since, but he wasn't a baby. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't incredibly young, but he had that exact thing I'm talking about. He had an energy that was like a mobilization behind him, and he had like some measure of charisma that made up for any youth he might have been lacking, you know? I remember when Barack Obama sang that Al Green. That was incredibly uncomfortable. No, because when it happened, I was at a get together with a bunch of aunties going, "Oh, Barack." I'm like, no. No, I'm trying to have my dinner right now. What you doing? Can't eat meatloaf in these conditions. And then you went from Obama to Trump, and Trump had that energy. He had people behind him, and he came off youthful because he was like a schoolyard bully. Anytime somebody said something, any interview that went awry, he was ready, nickname, anything. He was just coming at you all the time. It's like he fed off of it. It was his favorite thing to fight with the media and get people riled up. That feels like youthful energy. That feels like it's going to be here forever, you know? And then we went from Trump to Biden, who, to be fair, told us he was going to be old. I've talked about this before. We were coming at Biden. We asked Biden, and Biden was like, "Are you sure? I got a Werther's in my mouth right now." I'll do it if you want me to do it, but my car does smell like potpourri, so. I'll do it. If y'all want me to do it, I'll do it. For real. If y'all like, no. Like if I'm the only one that can stop them, if I need to do it, I'll do it. But just know, when I shake world leaders' hands at the G7, G20, whatever, my hand will pop a lot. Whole handshake. It's gonna sound like Orville Redenbacher. But if y'all insist. And then we got Trump again after Biden, and this feels very different. You go back and watch a rally of Trump from 2016, 2017, and then you watch a press conference now, very different. It's very, very different. I mean, it seems like he's dying. Like it's because look, I'm not. It's not lost on me that to be an American, to live in the U.S., you have to become, or at least have an understanding of what you need to do to be a semi-good capitalist, right? And there are people that ask the question, how can you fight for a more equitable world while you're living in a system that is corrupt? And I look at it the way I look at when I travel and I meet people who live in the country, but they don't speak the language, right? Like, your native language is compassion and charity. You weren't made specifically to speak the language of margin calls and derivatives, dividends and everything. That's a language you can learn to get by because you live here, but it's not the language you were born with. When your parents are raising you, or when you have fond memories of being a kid, they all come from things much, much deeper than money. And then as you get older, you clearly need money to get by. That's no crime. Like, you know, you have to function as a society. So you learn how to move with money as best as possible, but you can get distracted. It can take you to a place that makes it hard to remember your humanity. You know what I mean? Like, some people look at anyone who has succeeded in business as someone who must have earned it, but that's not how all business works. You know what I mean? Like, if I own a house and I set it on fire and I run out of the house, am I a genius, or did I just have an insurance policy? Maybe both, but maybe I'm a crook. You know? Like, only solvency that you have to contend with is your soul. You know what I mean? The solvency is defined by a company's ability to pay its long-term debts, right? If a company's not solvent, you have no trust in that company, and you probably shouldn't invest in that company. And as long as we're keeping it to financial terms, a soul works in a similar way. Depending on your belief system, depends on if your solvency, your long-term debt is to God or family, your community or a cause. But like, you can tell the difference between a religion and a cult by how they measure those solvencies. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that every major religion doesn't have its blemishes. It has people, so it's going to have plenty of mistakes in its history. But, you know, a religion that only speaks to what is deeper about you and what is in you and what happens outside of all of this is probably worth looking into, worth reading about. And anything that brings it all the way down to the material good is probably a cult. You know what I mean? Just because a cult usually wants your money. They start off pretty good. A cult usually starts off with like a great party or something. And then like, I don't know, in about 3 weeks, they're like, hey, how much do you make? You know, dividends work the same way. Dividends get paid out. Companies will pay dividends to their investors, and those dividends go to shareholders. They go to investors, and if you have ever been the beneficiary of someone's kindness or goodwill, then you have dividends to pay throughout your life, you know? And I don't know if that can be understood if you only understand business. You know? Country isn't a business. It just isn't. You know what I mean? Like, but who knows? He's a businessman. Like, maybe he's Trump is a businessman the way JFK Jr. was a pilot. You know what I mean? Oh, all right. No, you should groan. You're on the plane.